Hello everyone, welcome to Render Time. Here we chat with video creators about their worst and best projects in their creative journeys and the learnings they find along the way. Today we are speaking with Ben Lane, who is an editor and producer and overall content creator, and we're going to talk about their render time. All right, Ben, welcome to Render Time. I'm so excited to have you on. Just to give some context to the audience, who is Ben? What does Ben do? And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, Sean, thanks firstly for having me on Render Time. This is a really great chance to have a chat with you after we had a little bit of a brief meeting during Adobe Max while I was based here in Australia and you joined our live stream. But I've been a broadcast professional on and off for about 27 years. It's probably closer to 30 now. I started off as an E&G editor, progressed through, and now I've been currently freelancing here in Melbourne, Australia, and running my sort of own boutique small production studio for about 13 years now. So do everything from social media through to corporate, and we're still doing a little bit of broadcast television. So I post-produce a Australian-based adventure bike show, and we also do a dirt bike show that's been running for nearly 21 years called MXTV. And yeah, it's for a career I tripped across when I was 17 years old. This has worked out okay so far.
That's cool. What got you into this kind of industry? I always like to, wonder where do you start?
I was obsessed with watching movies. I think that was it, pure and simple. My grandparents were the first. My grandparents got a VHS player, and we were in that sort of late 80s era. And then I spent a lot of my weekends staying with my grandparents on and off while my mum worked. So I would, Pop would always take me down to the video shop, and we'd pick a couple of movies. And so I think it just grew from there. And I think, funnily enough, I think it was my grandmother that spotted it, that maybe I should do this. So she, I think during year 11, she said, or year 10, she said, which is, I think when we're about 15, 16 here in Australia, and you're coming to the end of high school, we then move into what's called matriculation, which you then sort of do your specialist subjects. And she said, maybe you should talk to this gentleman who was ended up becoming my media teacher in year 11. And he used to be he used to run the media course at one of the colleges I went to. And he said, why don't you, if you really want to do this, during my year 11, he said, maybe you go and volunteer your time over the summer holidays at the local TV station where I grew up in Hobart in Tasmania. And it just sort of took off from there. I probably sacrificed my final year of school for it a little bit, but my parents were trusting that I'd made a decision that was going to be the right one. And, luckily, in touch wood, it's turned out that way. Becoming a freelancer, I'm not so sure I didn't think I was cut out for it. I don't think everyone's cut out for it. It's a brave step. It's leaving that safety net. So I think my grandparents or my grandmother spotting it nearly 30 plus years ago was the catalyst for it all. Yeah.
Wow. So what did you start out by making like little movies and kind of go from there? Or did you jump kind of like, where did you transition from like, okay, this is make-believe world, I can imagine stuff, and then it turned into it actually being like a job?
I think it was almost just practically a year. I joined a gifted and talented program at the end of year 10, and then was moving into that first year of college and year 11 and 12. And I think that's it. I had just found my spot. I'd previously done some work experience during my year 10, during my final year of high school at the national broadcaster here in Australia, the ABC. And I got to try everything. So I got to make the graphics for the weather one night. And, when you're 15, you're kind of going, oh, wow, these are all things that when you're 15, you're told you have to make a career choice. How do you know for the rest of your life that's what you're going to do or you're going to enjoy doing? So I did that. And then randomly, I got to edit a news story that I'd been out with the news crew filming that day. And the fact that an editor took the time in the old style E&G edit suite, so going from tape to tape, and you've got to build everything in a layer, and, you've got to add the voice and add the soundtrack and then, insert, edit all the pictures as you go. And to get through that, and then I went, oh, I kind of like this. This is kind of good. So then year 11, that was great. It was hands-on with cameras. We had a fully functioning news studio in the college. So we produced a news bulletin each week, and Graham was just really good at our teacher was really good at identifying who had what strength and all that sort of stuff. And then, I just, at the end of that year 11, when I was 16, I went to the TV station and it was like, that's it, I'm hooked. I started off as a studio cameraman and then spent my whole year 12, so bumping in sets, bumping out sets, filming the news every night. We were doing, back then, we still sort of had a bit of a regional TV industry. So we were probably doing studio shows 4 days a week, and which was great. I mean, growing up in a sort of, I guess, a regional centre, you just wouldn't get that experience working on some of the stuff that we got to work on, especially in a big city. So it gave me, I think, a really good base. And then as I progressed up through the TV station over that 15 years that I was there, and I ended up in online and commercial production, I wouldn't have got that experience here in a big city like Melbourne or Sydney.
Yeah. So what do you remember your first paid freelance gig?
Well, interestingly enough, so I started as a freelancer and I was always an editor. I'd never really done too much camera work. And my partner, Josie, at the time was the marketing manager for an event. It's a coastal town here in Victoria called Lorne. They have a massive ocean race every summer. So the Lorne Pier to Pub. So everyone starts out at the pier and races into the beach to the pub. Very Australian. It's but it's become an iconic event across the surf coast over summer. Up to 5,000 participants on the day. And at that stage, there was no one doing any video coverage. And she said, well, why don't you tap into, A, you need to practice some camera work, but B, into that whole E&G style of news editing and gathering. She said, and surely you can edit a video piece by the time the day's over. So that was the first challenge. I sponsored it, so I wasn't paid to do it, but I volunteered my time. And I went, I kind of enjoyed this. It was a tough, busy day. The event finishes at 3 and I had the video online by 6 o'clock that night. And it was just like, and now I think that's still, in theory, my longest serving freelance, I guess, customer. I'm 13 years down the track. I'm still a sponsor of the event. My logo's on the T-shirt, which makes me pretty proud to be able to know that I'm volunteering my time, but helping an event that's integral to the success of the surf club and having enough money to operate and keep people safe over summer is awesome.
That's really cool. So what do you think you like more or less? Do you like editing more? Do you like being behind the camera? What do you think?
I love I've always loved the challenge of editing. I think it's what I try and do as part of my business is always exceed a client's expectations. It's if you can deliver something that they're not expecting, especially service wise, it's great. You can just if you can take something, because they might not be able to see what's possible. They'll just go, here's all of this. It might be stuff, especially that I learned during lockdown. And I think a lot of editors discovered during lockdown, a lot of companies all of a sudden realised that video is king. It's a great way to communicate with your staff and your teams. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be pretty simple. So here's all this content. What can you make out of it? Like I literally just finished yesterday I have a client who's a rather large toy company based here in Australia, and they've had a great year globally. They've been very successful. So they make toys like Mr. Beast and Bluey and all that sort of stuff. And we just finished their hype reel for the end of the year, and it's just amazing. Here's a bunch of photos, here's some video. What's it going to look like? And then a couple of days later, you come back with here, have a look. And if you hit something and there are no changes or there's very minimal changes, you know that you've hit it perfectly. So yeah.
Do you ever have those moments where like you edit your own footage and like you get mad at your like videographer version of yourself? You're like, why? Why did I do that? Why did I cut too soon? Why did I pan that way? What was I thinking?
Absolutely. Just keep it steady. Don't breathe. Just keep it steady. Yeah. I think the hardest one for me, and it was especially prevalent when I first started out because I wasn't shooting so much myself. And a lot of photographers are morphing into videographers these days as well. And there's there's an Instagram video kicking around about it. And it was the golden rule that I always taught myself and would say to photographers when you're doing the rule of 10s or 3s is in your shot, hold it for 10 seconds at the start, pan or tilt, do whatever you need to do, and then hold it for 10 seconds at the other end. Now you've got 3 usable shots out of one button on. So it's things like that. And I always forget. So I always, in my head, I'm always just count to 10, just count to 10, just count to 10, because it is, because you'll get mad at yourself and you'll go, why didn't I hold it for that half a second longer? Or yeah, it's and my biggest one is it recording?
Oh my God!
Because
so many times I look down and I don't see the red light. I'm like,
We've all been there. We've all been there. I think it's my favorite one is when you see the Instagram videos of the videographer hitting the button, and then that infamous Sony sound comes on, and it's the button on sound, not the button off sound, and you go, oh, and then it's. But see, then again, that goes back into my news days. Is I still remember that the cameraman would always, so the older Sony broadcast ENG cameras have a review button. And so as soon as you buttoned off on tape, you could have record review and it would play you the last 5 seconds of the file. And so I will always try and do that. As soon as in the middle of an interview on a corporate days, button off, check the thumbnails, make sure that I'm happy with it, and then go about the rest of the shoot. Because that's it. You need that piece of interview content is critical to whatever piece you're working on. You need to make sure that it's there.
Yeah, when I was in school, I did a little bit of trades, filmmaking trade school, and there was a documentary course. And one of the key things they taught me, the accounting thing there was a version of that in there.
Yep.
But it was the type of shots that you would get. And I still use it today, and I replay it in my mind, and I say it all the time. Wide, medium, close.
Yeah.
Close,
absolutely.
close.
That. Yeah.
That's always resonated in my mind. And even the other one, when in doubt, shoot a close up. Whether it's signage, whether it's somebody, picking up something or whatever that kind of helps tell the story, that I've used a ton, and it's helped me tremendously.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's all those little verite moments that you can just randomly pick up. We recently finished a series. We do some work for an agency client of mine, do some work for a rather large paint company called Dulux here in Australia. And we did a beautiful community piece on, there's a gentleman who goes around and he's restoring, we have a whole lot of Victorian era mailboxes still on the street. And he's been sponsored by the paint company and Australia Post, who's our postal organisation here, to restore the letterboxes. So they've given him a list of 150 that are still in operation. And then he goes around and fully restores them into their original paint colours. And we did a beautiful piece at his house, and it was just walking around his house. And he'd also been a recording artist, so he had a couple of gold records on the wall and all this stuff. And it was like, and then I had this moment because I remembered that my grandparents had that album. So it was all this stuff that you're going through and just going, oh wow, this is just amazing. So yeah.
Well, in the spirit of Render Time show, I do want to talk a little bit about a specific project, and one that you feel that is your least favorable project that you've done creatively. Let's get into it. I want to know about it. So tell me, what is this project that you did that is just the most unfavorable thing, and maybe what you've learned the most from?
It wasn't the most. Well, I guess it was my least favorite because it filled me with a lot of anxiety each time I did it. I was doing a fill-in shift at for another editor at another agency, and he'd set up this beautiful workflow, but it was all fully chroma keyed, and it involved Cinema 4D renders of graph animations, and it was basically a stock market report each day and each week. And so I'd come in, and most of it was fine, but it took you probably about 4 hours to get it set up. So drawing the graphs, plotting them in Illustrator, carrying them over to After Effects, mapping them out, and then loading them in for the render. And then once the render started, it was all to be rendered as one piece. So to render that 2 minutes took about 2 hours. And so it was always pre-check. Make sure that you'd previewed everything, make sure that everything was right, because otherwise you're going to have to go back and do little patch renders, and you've got to then match frame them in, and the deadline's 6 p.m. that night. So you've got to make sure that you're you have it nailed first time. So every single week I covered this for about 6 weeks, and I would go in and no reason for me to be anxious, but you just do. You just can't help yourself but get anxious. So I'd get in there, do it all, and then you'd just be setting it off. And it's that whole thing of you're then watching each frame go through, because as soon as you spot something, you go, oh, did I just see that? Oh, do I need to? And then you don't.
And it's always at the end, right? It's always at the end. You're like, I got to start all over again.
So I think what it taught me very early up was just always, especially on those bigger effect heavy projects, and it's because you're dealing with cinema 4D, you're dealing with 3D renders, you're dealing with sliding graphics, chroma keys, maskings, blurs. As soon as you start loading those effects up, you've just got to make sure that all your ducks are in a row, because otherwise it takes a simple thing that you've just been impatient about to derail. And sometimes when we're all rushing for a deadline, we do miss those little things. And I think very early up, and every once in a while I have to put the post-it note up on the bottom of the screens. There is just you are the gatekeeper, because you're the person that's responsible. 9 times out of 10, it's fine to say that a producer should have looked at it or someone from the agency should have looked at it, but it left you first. So you're the person that should probably be ultimately making sure that it's okay before it goes out the door.
Yeah. So what exactly happened? You changed the workflow. So where did it exactly go wrong?
It would just be those few little times that if I hadn't been, over those first few weeks, it was not pre-checking, not making sure. So I'd have to go back and re-render, a few little seconds. So then you've got to make the phone call or the email and say, look, the file's going to be late. Yeah. And so you don't, and then it's that whole thing of, and ultimately it's what we all come down to. And as long as we don't think we are, but we're all customer service as well. So you've got to then talk to the end client or the agency and say, hey, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit late. And then it would just be, what's the easiest way to patch this or to fix it? And it's, once those 3D animations got involved, you couldn't, because you'd have to re-render that whole section because it was talent on camera and animation over his shoulder. There was no way to mask it. So you had to re-render, like a 30-second piece again. And if it's 2 hours to do the 2 minutes, you can imagine that's taking another 20, 30 minutes to re-render that section again. So it was just making sure that everything was perfect before I hit render and watch those keyframes start sliding through.
So did you end up actually missing the deadline? Is that what happened?
I'd be a little bit late. Ultimately, it wasn't a broadcast piece, so that was okay. It was just going out on social media, but there was the expectation that it would be live that night. So it was just sometimes it'd be half an hour late, but you don't want to be that person. That. So it was then making sure that I think the things that I then implemented were I'd draw the graphs the night before. So as long as the graphs were available, I would plot the graphs the night before in Illustrator, because that was taking you sort of, maybe 2 hours to plot, depending on how many graphs you had to do and that sort of stuff. It was just, making sure that it was all okay.
Yeah. What was the conversation like with the client? How did that go?
Oh, she was gold. She was always good. She was, she understood that, it wasn't, I was the fill-in, and that's, I think the expectation is that as long as the client is understanding of that, and they should be understanding of that. It's like anyone. It's like, when you've got, we've had people turn up on shoots to help out. Sometimes you have to take the time and say, look, I'm not expecting you to get this perfect because this is your new shift. I mean, it's happened to me in the middle of sports broadcasts running a VT machine. They've, the crew and the truck have gone, ease up, it's not his regular job. This is the one day of the year he might be doing this job. Just cut him some little slack, and the director will take a deep breath and let you go.
Do you recall a time where like you just completely botched an edit, or had a really tough time on a videography job at any point, and you were like, why did I do that? I
think one of them was newsroom jobs. I think when I worked back in the newsroom in the A&G days, there'd be stuff where you would just because you were under such pressure to get stuff out that you did compromise what you would think is a standard. I think it's one thing that it has taught me is to help make critical decisions quickly and be satisfied and happy with, I have to justify this. I have to make sure. There's always jobs that you'll always, regret and second guess yourself on. It's like it's always miking things up. Like, so if I'm shooting something, it's always making sure it's like, that would have been really great to have a microphone on them, to pick up a little bit of that sound audio of them talking to, just casual interaction, because it's something that can lift a piece up. Sometimes you can just that little bit of verite audio under something that can just catch a little moment. But
how many times I put the mic on the wrong side of the lapel, because like they'll be talking a 2-person conversation and they're looking this way, but the microphone's over here. So you're muffled. I can't tell you how many times I've done that.
That one's always one of my favorites. And the other one is always you just sit there and go, I should have just moved the other shot, especially when you're having to run a shoot by yourself. and it might be like a simple 3-camera interview or something, but you're just kind of looking at it going, I really should have. But you're one person who's trying to run between 3 cameras.
Yeah,
it can be super hard sometimes, and that's kind of nice now that I'm at a position where now my clients are happy to trust us and bring on extra people on jobs, so that we do have those resources. When it's even stuff like running a teleprompter by yourself and having to do the camera and listen to the audio. It's we all think we're superheroes, but we haven't got all the skills down pat all the time. So it's I think it's that thing is, and there are countless times where I probably have stuff up. It's sometimes it's not even just flicking the camera. Taking the camera out of autofocus is a tricky one. You might sometimes you've been asked by the client to put a camera at the back of the room just to record the presentation while you're getting all the B-roll.
Yeah,
and if you haven't, and it picks up the wrong subject. So it's just take it straight out of autofocus, set focus for the whole stage. So it doesn't matter, everything's in focus, and just and then you don't have to come back and have a panic attack when all of a sudden it's picked up the waiter who's been walking through the room, and you go,
it's doing this.
yeah. Oh, a bit of focused breathing always gives me anxiety.
Oh, I can't stand it. It drives me crazy.
It's the worst. But
have you ever made an adjustment like in the middle of a recording and then you're like, oh my God, why did I do that? Like the tripod stuck and it wasn't smooth or was locked down still and it jolts.
It's the locks. And I think that's the very first thing I learned was my very first tripod was a beautiful Miller, but it had seen some better days. And now I've got a really nice Satchler Flowtech, and it's one of those things. It's now super smooth, and you can unlock it nicely, and it's not going to go whoa on you, and all of a sudden make it look like where the hell did that go? Who's running that camera? So which college student has he got employed on there? But it's I think the biggest key is if you're not learning, and if you're not continuously learning from whatever you're doing, it's you're not going to grow. You're not going to get better. And you're not going to improve. I mean, for me, the big one in the last 2 years has been lighting, because I'm not, a classically trained videographer. It's watching what other people are doing. It's all those news crews and production crews that I used to work with. It's all those little things that you gleaned across your career. It's like, well, what do I do now? My favorite one was when in doubt, bounce, which a guy taught me. Scott Ross taught me when I was in my first year working with him on a kids show that we worked on, and I was the sound recordist. And he just said, if you can't light it properly, just find a spot where you can bounce the light into the room, off the wall or the ceiling. And he said it'll wrap it around for you a little bit better. And it's just little things like that. It's like we were saying, like it's like the hiding the lapels. As long as you can try and sit it in the middle somewhere, not over here, not over there. If you can get it in the middle, then you're pretty much going to be okay. So it's just those things. Always learning. It's like rendering and editing. I mean, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're not going to get better. You're not going to repeat those things again. I mean, the biggest one for me is, especially with outputting TV shows. In the old days, it used to be that you had to sit there when you were committing to tape. You would sit there for the hour and you would watch the show go through.
Yeah.
And so if there was anything wrong, you'd see it. Whereas now, I think you've got to make sure that you do watch it through. And I'll watch it through twice now, because it's once for audio. So I'll listen to it and make sure there's no weird audio, because I've got to mix all my own audio before it goes to the network. And then I'll watch it purely just as a viewer. So it'll just be sit there, watch it, try not to adjust anything, just make sure it's all good to go out the door. And then I think 9 times out of 10, actually, I'd like to say 99% of the time we pass QC at the network. But they're super brilliant when there have been issues technically, because it's stuff that I might not necessarily pick up. I've got broadcast monitor setups, but sometimes it'll be a piece of footage that's running at 59.94 frames, and we're outputting at 50 for broadcast here in Australia. And so it's just, you haven't retimed the footage properly when you've outputted the episode. So it just means you've just got to go back, retime it, and output the file again. So there's no repeated frames or drop frames in it. So it's but sometimes you can't see that. You're watching the footage so much, and it's like a client. They're so focused on what the end product looks like, they get too close to the content sometimes. And you've got to take a step back and remember that you're only watching this for one time. Most people are only going to watch your content once. So yes, you've got to make sure it's perfect, but let's not get too stuck into the minutiae of it sometimes.
Yeah, because the stuff they're looking at may not be they're looking at it with like a fine-tooth comb. I mean, even as an editor like myself, I'll watch my own edit 100 times, and each time I watch it, there's always a new little nugget I pick up, and I'm like, okay, maybe that does connect that together. And then somebody watches it and they're completely confused, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm analyzing something that I'm expecting people to look at. So it's a really interesting medium when you think about it, because
It is, yeah, it is. I find the trickiest part for me is, and I'm sure we all suffer from it to a certain degree, is imposter syndrome.
every day, man,
every day. And I don't find it crippling, but it's you then put the work out there into the universe, and you got to go, someone's going to find something wrong with it, and they're going to point out that I'm a fraud and I don't know what I'm doing, and then it's been really nice. So this year I stepped into doing some sort of fashion style work over the last couple of years for an agency client, and I hadn't really done too much of it, but it called on a lot more strength. So it was a lot more visual storytelling. So I was changing the way I shot. So it's not being very practical and documentary style. It's looking at how the photographers that I've worked alongside shoot stuff. So it's not, and the big thing is, shooting through an object to your subject, so that you're getting that nice little bit of foreground, background interaction, and lighting things correctly, and color balancing, because the critical thing with these things was that the colors of what I had shot had to exactly match what was going online for the garments to be sold. So you're having to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect color-wise and matches into those brand colors, because if the garment looks wrong, people aren't going to buy it. They're going to go, why does it look like that here, but online it looks like this? When I purchase it and it turns up, what's it going to look like? And people, you might not think it's a critical thing, but it's absolutely huge. It could be the make or break between a garment selling or not selling. So but it's been I think a big growth in mine this year was lighting some of that stuff. Even if you're in a room that's impossible, it's what have you got that's available? Is it a little bit of bounce? Is it, if you're lucky enough to have a scrim with you for the day, do you just need to pop up a giant scrim to block out a bit of light coming through a window? It's just, like I said before, it's just grow and learn. I mean, it can feel like a challenge at the time, but you'll walk away from it once the finished piece is delivered, and you kind of go, oh, I can do this. Oh, this is really cool. Like another one that we just finished, and they were a series of 6-second pre-rolls, and each pre-roll had 4 shots in it. So it's super quick, but we were lighting them in very tricky environments. So we had like a corporate office that was completely natural light flooding in during dawn, and we had a couple walking down a hallway, but we then had to light it with 2 600 apertures coming through each window out of 2 corporate offices. But just by luck, we had sheer curtains and a couple of screens, so we could block it off and make it just look like a standard corporate office. But you're still fraught with danger, because you're looking at it going, well, that's not what it should look like. But once it's in post and you colour it up, and you might put a slight blur on those sides if you need to, or something like that, it just turns out key. But I didn't have to do any of that because we'd lit it perfectly at the time, and it worked out great. So I think it's one of those things that it makes your job easy in post. A little tweak on the colours just to get it right, and we're all good. I
mean, that's classic movie magic. You only need to build or put up what the camera needs to see, and the mind will fill in the rest. So I think sorry, I was going to say, I think that's the critical part. If you can keep it as clean and as simple as possible, and there isn't that distraction of, especially if it's another editor or another, like I used to love it. I'm not sure if you ever found it, but when movies were being converted to VHS, and they would remove the anamorphic bars, and you'd watch a VHS conversion and there'd still be like dolly tracks in the bottom or a boom pole in the top. And so you start watching movies like that, and you become way too critical, and you just go, and even my partner, she now says, that I've ruined movie watching for her, because she'll sit there and go, oh, that shouldn't be like that. I have so many people tell me that all the time. I'm like, oh, that's the killer. Or, oh, I know how they did that shot. Like, oh, that's kind of over, like you just kind of, you see it in a whole different light. It's fun. I love the heck out of it. And I know I have friends that are movie buffs, and, we break stuff down. But I get the same comments. Hey, you ruin movies, man. You ruin the magic. Another thing I noticed too, sorry to interrupt, but another thing I noticed too is when I watch movies, I notice little flaws. Like like when you do like a match cut, and like somebody's, let's say, just grabbing a doorknob on a door. One shot, I remember me cutting those two together to match it, and I wanted to have the hand in the perfect spot. But then when I watch films, sometimes they're looking the other way, but you don't notice it. And as an editor, you probably go through it, but ultimately when you go back and you look at the wider view, you're looking at the whole story, and you're just telling the story. Those little minor details, while they're important, they're also like it doesn't make or break your edit. And I'm learning to try to break away from that. I don't really know where I was going in that direction, but yes, continue.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you've touched upon that exact thing. It's that we're all 9 times out of 10 probably only going to watch something once. I'd probably get a little bit obsessed. I have a few favorite movies that I'll continuously watch over and over, but it's probably because I can't spot a mistake in them that I do that, because it's like, it's not going to annoy me. But I think it's those things that if you can remove yourself from being too attached to the product or the finished product, it does help you enjoy it and say, okay, everyone else is only going to watch this once. No one's going to notice that. No one's going to be as critical as you are about it. But you do. Like you said before, I think as editors, I think our prerogative is to just polish. The critical skill is actually to learn when is enough. When is it going to be that it's hit the point that it's okay? And sometimes it has to just be, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be okay.
Yeah, and I think it's just, if it doesn't distract anyone from the actual storyline and the through line, then it should work, So I do want to pivot, because we talked about, kind of the learnings and the things that have gone wrong, but let's talk about what's gone right. I'd love to hear about a project that you are insanely impressed by, that you've done yourself, or that you're really, really proud of.
Back to that, it was back to the fashion stuff. We did a piece where it was a little bit of a test. We'd had to fly interstate, so we'd fly into Sydney to do a shoot, and it required, part of it was a dawn sunrise shot, and so we were there at 4:30 in the morning getting ready, and it just, I still look at that shot. It's I think it's one of the links that I shared with you, and it's a piece with an Australian triathlete, Emma Jeffcoat, who is also an emergency department nurse. So we had this shot of her. So part of the campaign was seeing the scrubs in an environment where you normally wouldn't see hospital scrubs, and so we had her on a training day as a triathlete. And so we did this beautiful shot of sunrise coming up over Narrabeen Lakes in Sydney. And just, it was one of those moments where it just was perfect. The light, that there's this one shot, and every time I watch it, I just sit there and I smile and I go, see, you can do these things. And then the rest of the content turns out to be amazing. I think we only had like 3 or 4 hours with her. So the fact that we're able to produce that 2-minute piece of content, and then I think a suite of close to, I think it was 10 social 10-seconders out of it as well, was awesome. And I think that's what I enjoy most about the process, is that you can tell a great story. It works out perfectly. The colors and everything else are amazing, and it just comes together. And I guess it's just that whole Kismet principle. It's just it works out. Trust the process. And if something does go wrong, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to tweak it? Can you fix it in post? I mean, we all hate it when you hear, as an editor, and you hear the camera operator say it on tape. We've all cursed them, which is, if you hear one person on tape in the audio, in the scratch audio, say, oh, they'll just fix it in post. But if you get it right out in the field, it saves everyone pain in the long run. And I think just watching, that was the final piece in a series of, I think we did 6 in the end, 6 over, I think it was about 6 months. And each time I watched my skill set get progressively better in the storytelling and in how to complete the finished product. It's, because sometimes we did only have 2 or 3 hours to get a piece done. So it was, how do we get the critical audio done for the interview piece? What shots in the scenario are we going to tell? How are we going to pack this person's work out? Like, we dealt with a refugee healthcare nurse who trains as a boxer. We had a male disability worker who, and his outlet was rock climbing. So, we had him climbing, rock climbing in the scrubs and all that sort of stuff. So it was just great telling all those different stories as they went along, and watch that garment and get put through the test. And, each time, they were all more than happy to take it out into the real world environment if they had to. Not that they're going to necessarily. I don't think Emma was necessarily going to go to the Olympics wearing some scrubs, because let's be fair, I don't think the Olympic committee would let her do that. But it was just great to see them, put through that test, that a garment hits the job, you film it perfectly, all the colours are right, the story's told, and it makes a great piece of content in the end that I still go back to and watch, and I still smile. I mean, yeah, sure, there'd probably be things that I would have changed the way, but when you sometimes got a shoot that's time critical, you've just got to get what you can get done.
I mean, you'd be crazy if there wasn't something when you look back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
You'd be out of your mind if you didn't.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's it. And like I said before, if you're not learning from it, then, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. That leads me to my next question is, was this a concept that you worked on with your team, or was this from was this from an agency or the client themselves?
So this was via an agency that I used to share my office space with. So we had a great little studio space where we had a full fashion studio, so a white Sykes studio, and about 6 or 7 small businesses in there. So some photographers, video production like myself, and then a creative agency. And they'd watched a couple of pieces that I'd done and a bit of storytelling. So they'd realised that this was a core strength of what we offer, and is that sort of that corporate storytelling, which can be tricky, for different video companies. I mean, we've all got a niche, but I think what I've been able to do is not be a niche in production styles. So, we're doing everything from motorbike storytelling in the TV show that we produce through to I work with a great charity here in Victoria called Very Special Kids, and who provide hospice care for children who have a life limiting illness. And so it's parts of those storytelling and tapping into those not necessarily emotional moments, but human moments that I think stood out to Lib and Owen. And so they said, are you able to help out with producing this series with us? So they would give me a rough storyboard. Lib would direct the shoots, which was really great. So it just meant that I could focus on getting all the visuals and making sure that, I'd lit things. And because 9 times out of 10, it was that, it'd be a very small crew. So it'd be usually me and a camera assistant. And then it was just getting the story told, because sometimes you're having to set up shots where there might not be something for the person to do that part of their workout. But we were lucky to have some great locations because they'd scouted all the locations beforehand. And so we had some great spots, which is gold. Because, I mean, that's the critical part. You know where you're going to be. You can see the rooms before you get there. And so then it's just, well, now what can I get out of this location to tell the story best?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So what was the on-set like how long was this shoot for? Like, how long were you out there?
So most of the shoots we'd have probably about half a day. So we'd have about 4 hours on location with each talent. We'd be checking off everything on. So we'd have a mood board. So so Lib would take inspiration. She'd go, I'd like shots that look like this. I'd like shots that look like that, because what we needed to show was the garment being tested. So it's things like, stretchy knees, ankle hemming, all that sort of stuff. How does it move? How does it sit on the shoulders? So it was, how is it, how do we capture those key moments? But we also still need to make it visually interesting and part of the storytelling so that it doesn't look too obvious that, we're trying to give you the key takeaways from this thing, which is you should buy this garment because it works perfectly and it moves really well and it'll let you do your job. So it was part of that. And we just check off the shots like you should on a standard shoot. Just go through, have we got this? Have we got that? But then it'd also be like we were touching on before, it was, if you can pick up those little verite moments, so you'd be looking around and you'd go, oh, there's that. Maybe if I get a cutaway of that, or, a couple of times it was, we did one with an AFLW player, and she was just at one stage just twirling the football in her hand, and I just got a super slow-mo with that because I shoot on Sony FX6 generally and FX3, and just the fact that, just switch it into S&Q and just get a nice little cutaway moment of her just twirling that football in her hands. And you've got a quick cutaway that can help break up a story, but also helps fill in a bit of who is she and what does she do?
Yeah. So what do you think, from kind of your first beginning days to where you're at now, what do you think are some of like your biggest learnings that you were able to kind of, make the magic that you're making now?
And if I'm completely honest, I never want to go back to onlining. So when I first started in the industry, the TV station was still tape-based. So we to be fair, we were digital tape-based, but we had a Ampex, which some people may be familiar with. We had an Ampex DCT suite. I think we were only one of 2 or 3 facilities in Australia that used it. So firstly, it then made the tapes very expensive. And it was a genuine learning because it's not like now where it's click, drag, right click, move a layer, whatever. You were building up a job from bottom to top like a house almost. So you had to make sure all your ducks were lined up, which I think has also helped me with my project organization, because it's you give the same job to 10 different editors, you're going to get 10 different looking timelines. Yep. But I think if you can keep your house in order, I think it makes it easier for everybody, especially if they can walk in and go, that's what that is. That's what that is. But I think the biggest critical learning I had comes from the newsroom time, which was that it's just making those not quick decisions, but making a decision and being committed to and backing yourself in with making that decision, because but it's then also not being too attached to it. So, I mean, because 9 times out of 10, sometimes a client's going to come to you and go, we don't like that shot, but you're going to go, oh, but it's perfect. It was my favorite shot on the shoot. And they go, yeah, but it doesn't tell our story. And you can't, I mean, you can try and fight for it if you think it's critical, but
that's usually the editor's line when they cut that's your favorite shot. You're like, oh, but it doesn't.
So I've got to get angry at myself. Yeah, exactly. And so I'll sit there and go, and I'll catch myself going, yeah, but dude, it's not great. It's, it doesn't tell the story of them. Yes, it's a great shot. So you might keep it for your show reel later on or a sizzle reel. But yeah, if it's not mission critical, it's got to go. So I think the biggest learnings are, I think in the end, it's always be open to feedback. I watch a lot of editors not handle feedback well. And in the corporate, especially in the corporate environment, you're going to cop it. I mean, my great yardstick is I had a piece, to be fair, it was 10 minutes long with no brief. It was just, here is everything. And I think at one stage we had 184 points of feedback. And whilst that might cause most people to go into meltdown, it was just literally, and you're getting all the dialogue pop-ups. So, you're watching them roll into your inbox going, what are these? But it's literally just change the font, just move it to here. So it's just tiny little housekeeping things, but it's just roll through it, get it done, move it on. And just, I guess it buys back into that thing of what you were asking before. It's, what are you going to learn from it? What should you have done differently about the way you built that project, potentially for the feedback loop? And it is. It always, I mean, none of us love it. The feedback loop is a dread loop to a certain degree, but 9 times out of 10, if you've got the job 90% there before it leaves the door and lands in their inbox, then you've done your job. You're not going to have to, you might have 10 points of feedback and they will 9 times out of 10 just be, let's add some name supers here. Let's just fix the color on that. We don't quite like how it transitions into this. What's a different approach we could try? And then you look at a different way that you could handle getting into some, like we had one yesterday, and it was, we went from a whole video montage into a spoken word piece, and it didn't quite flow properly with some of the visuals we used in the background of the graphics. And then and the client just said, could we just try this? Let's go with our corporate color and the text animating on a different way. And so I gave that a try, and they loved it. So it's one of those things, just be open to different ideas. And it's that hard thing. Sometimes you do have to get someone else in and say, can you just watch this? What are your notes? Because you do sometimes lose that objectivity. You get obsessed with, oh, how great does this look? Oh, this is the best thing I've ever done. And then someone goes, oh, yeah, but that's a bit. And so as long as you can do that.
It's always the thing that it's in your mind too. You'll watch it, be like, oh, man, somebody's going to comment. Yeah. And then enough, somebody said something and you're like, ugh.
I think one thing, and I'm probably letting a bit of a trade secret out here, is one of the very first things that we used to do in the TV station in the commercial production department. It was regional TV commercial. So, we're not, dealing with big budgets here, but sometimes every once in a while, one of the producers did what was called the blue duck, which is put something super obvious in that the client's going to pick on to distract them from the thing that you really like and want to keep. And so it was a trick that I'd learned, but now I've got a couple of clients who go, so where was the blue duck in that edit? Where was the thing that you wanted me to pick on?
They're on to you.
They're on to me. So it's one of those things I've always gone, I really wish I hadn't told you about that. So it's one of those funny things that every once in a while, but it's one of those things. You do learn these little tricks of the trade, so to speak, that help you get to the finish line when you're trying to crunch some of those very tight deadlines sometimes.
Totally. I got to ask though, what's probably the hardest piece of feedback you've gotten? Does anything come to mind?
I think sometimes it'll be, I think it's interview structure. Sometimes you've just got to be, you've got to genuinely listen to some of the structure. And sometimes if you are under that rushing stuff, it can be tricky. But I think what's really helped especially me with that sort of stuff sometimes is now transcription, like online transcription stuff, real time services now that you can get, and you can have a paper edit for yourself, where sometimes we wouldn't have that, 10 years ago. You'd have to pay a transcriber to sit there and hand transcribe it, whereas now you can plug it into, especially with Adobe, you can plug it into the AI transcription, and you can have a transcript back, sort of within 20 minutes. And then you can look for those key phrases and help you tell the story structure a bit better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing. And it was something, and this was this has brought me right back to when I started as here in Melbourne. I'd worked in an environment where I'd come from, you had an editor, you had a producer, you had a journalist. Mm-hmm. So as an editor, you purely just were putting together what you were given, which is fine. That's fine. When I first moved here to Melbourne, one of the production companies I worked with as a full-time job before I became a freelancer was it was literally, here's the tape, now make something out of it. So I had to learn that skill myself, was how to do the structure, how to do the storytelling, how to put the interview together and get it to fit in 3 minutes. I mean, that's the thing. And sometimes as an editor, and I guess it's now what we would refer to as a predator, is that, that whole sort of producing while you're shooting and thinking what's going to tell the story while you're going, and then editing it together. And I think that's now stood me in a lot better stead, because it would be that during those first 3 years that I had to get my head around that, we'd have an edit review session every Friday, and it would be sometimes I'd have to fully recut the interview because they just weren't happy with how the structure was. And it would make me feel sick to my core. Like it was feedback loop dread times 1,000. It would just be, we'd sit there and it'd just be take notes, and then you'd have 2 hours to fix the episode before it went out the door. So you have to restructure an interview very quickly. But as long as you remembered where everything was, it's okay. But you just sit there and go, breathe, here we go, reset, just get it sorted, and Bob's your uncle, get it done.
There's I don't know if you seem to be a movie buff, but there's a movie a long time ago called Clifford. It stars Martin Short and Charles Grodin. Have you seen it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
We're talking about, is it Clifford the Big Red Dog?
No, Clifford. It's basically Martin Short plays like a 13, 14-year-old kid who's just a complete, just like a menace. And there's a moment where Charles Grodin character is trying to put together new plans for. He's an architect and he's doing he's a city planner. I'm sorry, and he's trying to put together these plans last minute because everything got changed. And he's like, I can do it if I don't panic. So I constantly catch myself saying that line every time I'm in a crunch moment. So anyway, I
think that's it. No, but that's absolutely it. It's just take a deep breath. It will be okay. I mean, that's it. It's that imposter syndrome thing, though, I think, isn't it? It kicks in and you just go, I've got this. Once you realize you haven't been, neither of us have made it this far in our career or this industry without being able to go, I can do this, or if not, I've got the right person. I think, and especially for me, I think it was a big learning I took out of here in Victoria. We had lockdown for a long time. So we couldn't actually go out and film things for a while. And I think the biggest thing I had coming out of that was that one of my studio mates just said, what you need to go into the next year to help your business recover. And I'd been working super hard at making sure that, I kept afloat during that time, was that it was just say yes to everything, just say yes to every project that comes through the door and you're offered, and then figure out how you're going to do it afterwards. It's not, you've got that network of, the community around you of other skill sets. I've got producers, I've got directors, I've got, stylists, I've got makeup artists, all that sort of stuff on tap. So it's who do I need to bring in to help move that project forward? And it's that sort of stuff that once you get it done, it's, you know these people, you know how to get it done. So it's just, as long as you can do that, you're good.
And the more you hear other people do that same thing, they go just say yes to it. Because my first real true editing job that I got hired for at BuzzFeed, I had never used Premiere at all. I was a Final Cut 7 user.
So was I. Yep.
We don't talk about 10, but I was a Final Cut 7 user. Yeah. At least at the time, it's much better app now. But anyway, I never knew Premiere, and they were like, "We edit primarily in Premiere. That's what all of our editors use. Do you work in Premiere?" And I was like, "Yep, absolutely." And the rest is history. Now I'm a Premiere user, but the more you hear that other people have kind of faked it till they made it, I feel it kind of makes you feel a little bit better. You're like, okay, well, we all really didn't know what we were doing, but we stepped into it and made it happen. And like you said, we're still here now. We're still doing it. I mean, we're talking about the work we've done in the past and we've learned from it. And it's enlightening. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. So
it is. I've just got to show you something because you've just triggered this. Just excuse me for just one sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you've just triggered me. So
I try not to trigger people, but
no. So when I was working in Hobart in the TV station, I was using liquid silver. So I'm not sure if you're familiar. It was from Pinnacle. So
I know Pinnacle. I've never heard liquid silver.
Yeah. So liquid silver got bought out by Pinnacle, and then Pinnacle got bought out by Avid, and that was that was the first online non-linear suite that I learnt on, and it was gold. It was real-time playback. There was no, other than once you added graphics. So if it was just pure video, there was no render time. It was a magnificent little piece of software. Then I moved to Melbourne, and I had to learn how to use Final Cut. So this was my cheat sheet. So these were all my shortcuts and everything that I just had that I could just sit there on my desk. And then so it was, literally fake it till you make it. And it was, I think after about 3 months, I got there, but it was really super hard. And then as you touched on before, once Final Cut Studio 7, Studio 3 version 7 sort of faded out, I was like, well, how do I future-proof myself? Same thing. I transitioned into Premiere. I checked that my edit setup could talk to my Blackmagic card, so I could still use my broadcast outputs. Yep. All that sort of stuff worked perfectly and seamlessly. My favourite part, though, was that I could still use my Final Cut 7 shortcuts. So I have to confess, I still use all the Final Cut 7 shortcuts. So I get called out every once in a while on the Adobe forum that I'm a admin on, because every once in a while someone will go, what's the shortcut for that? And I go, I can't tell you because my muscle memory is purely Final Cut 7. So it's just like someone said, what's match frame? And I always just go, well, it's double F. Oh, no, it's not in Premiere. Oh. So it's things like that. It's all those little things that you just forget because it's purely muscle memory. Like sometimes you've got people that come in to watch how you do your job. So, I've got a couple of agency clients who, they have in-house editors and said, do you mind if they come along and just watch you work for a couple of hours and see if there's anything, tips and tricks that they can pick up. And we do. We just sit there and talk about it. And for me, it's in the end is don't watch too closely what I do because my different shortcuts, but it's building things up like muscle memory. It's hotkeys. I mean, it's all these fundamental little skills that just can speed up what you do, especially in the edit suite to make things quicker, super faster. I mean, I think you and I were having a chat the other day, but pancake editing. I mean, it's the first time you start pancake editing, it just changes the way you do selects, and it speeds my workflow up by nearly 20-30%. It's, the fact that you can just sit there and go, I like that shot, I like that shot, I like that shot. There's a great take. And you just build a rough structure as you go, and you can see the two timelines at the same time. Mm-hmm. You can go, oh, where was that shot? And just flick back through. And it just, on a day, especially when you're doing sort of same day turnaround video coverage, you're at a trade show or a corporate event and you've got to get something out for the big screen by the end of the day or for socials. You've got all that stuff on tap and you can just jog through and just find it super quick. So it's always, I think, one of those challenges. Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to ask, what are you working? What you're working on now? What are you excited about? Like, tell me the future of what you see in your career, Ben. What are you striving for?
Well, as of last week, we've committed to about, I think we've got another 13 or 14 episodes of television next year. So that'll be a big chunk of the year. So that's alongside all the corporate work that we do. So it'll be fitting both workflows in at the same time. But we've got it down pat now. It used to take about 5 days to turn a TV show around. We can probably do it in about 2 days tops now. So and the program and the storytelling we're doing now is a little bit simpler. It's not magazine style. So it's more a documentary style for 22 minutes. So once you take out bumpers, credits and everything else, we've only got about 20 minutes to tell the story in an episode. Excuse me. So it's part of that sort of stuff is that I really like the challenge of. And I think that still goes back to those newsroom days. It's proving to yourself that you can, you'll put pressure on yourself, but you can get something done in a critical amount of time. it's always been tricky for me because I don't have to promote this business. BL Media Solutions and our clients tend to take care of themselves, especially with workflow and stuff. So the other day I was a little bit fretful. I mean, we're near, the end of the year, so you should probably calm down and wind down a little bit so that going to Christmas with a clear conscience. But it's, but I think it was that thing of I had a week. This week was empty, and then on Thursday the whole week's gone. All of a sudden it's filled again. It's this little window, especially like to record this, was available. So it's I think that it's what I enjoy is that, and what I look forward to the most is that in the coming year that people are already approaching us to lock in projects for 2026, and that, can you put this in your back of your mind? Think about what we're going to do. If there's anything cool you want to think about an approach, it's little things like that I think I always look forward to, because in the end, that's why, your clients and the other people that you're collaborating with on stuff come to you to work with you, because it's, they know that you're going to solve that problem for them. It's they can give you something or an idea or whatever, and you can run with it, and you can say, oh, maybe we could do this, or maybe we could get a car rig and do this, or we can get some, like we do some stuff in the trucking industry every once in a while. And so it's every once in a while I'm going, oh, it'd be really cool to be able to strap a couple of GoPros to another chase vehicle, or a sort of a car rig, and get some cool rollers of trucks going down the highway and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's always just looking for those creative outlets. I think, and that still goes back to what I think I enjoyed when I was 15. It's you look at something and you go, how would I do that? How would I tell that story? How would I get it out to an audience? And I think that's why we all enjoy doing it. It's how do I construct this story? How do I tell what my vision is to you, the viewer, so that you'll enjoy it and you'll understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, Ben, we've been able to chat for a while now, and we're getting at the end of our time. Yep. I do want to appreciate you jumping on and sharing your insight. There's so many little nuggets, and hopefully people that are listening will be able to use that. And
I hope so. Yeah.
and make their lives a little easier. But is there anything you want to plug before we kind of end things? You have an Instagram or anything you want people to follow you at? Or
Yep, sure. Well, we always love a little bit more love over on our Instagram channel for the TV show that we do. So Oz Adventure Bike Show. If you look that up on Instagram, I think it's got a bit of a weird convoluted name because everyone else got the good names first. So I think it's at Oz _ ADV _bike, or me, which is simple enough, just at BL Media Solutions, all one word, on Instagram. And that's just where we do. I just share little BTS snippets. I think that's the thing. I think people on socials especially engage with that because they enjoy seeing how you do that process. Sometimes it's, it's how does the job get done? And sometimes they're shocked that it's literally just, a couple of you, a gimbal, and, everyone else just getting on with it. But, and making sure that the radio mics are in the right spot. But it's always that tricky thing of just making sure that you get gathering those social followers. And if you can access it via a VPN, especially if you're an overseas viewer, but if you're here in Australia on 7+, Aussie Adventure Bike Show is there. It's there for everyone to watch constantly. And our other TV show, MXTV, which is a motocross-based program, so they can tap into there on the 7+ platform and watch a lot of our past work.
Amazing. Well, Ben, thank you so much for sharing, and everyone listening, please give them a follow.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
Throw some love. But Ben, thank you again, man. Thanks for sharing your render time with us.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you all for listening to our guest today, and look out for more episodes. Now, if you want to be a guest on the show, contact me on my Instagram at SeanTCB and send me a message. I want to know what's your render time. We'll see you again soon.